And I've had the opportunity as a result of that to think about how I go about my work and how we as an organisation and industry go about our work. And I find there's quite a few problems with the way we think about clients, and we all suffer as a result of it. So I'm going to start off with the age-old way of telling stories to enunciate this point in a beautiful, short and ridiculous manner. So the first one is one that actually happened to me. A couple of months ago my shower started leaking, and then my ceiling started leaking, and then I eventually, when it got terrifying, called the plumber. Plumber came round, he looked at the problem, he did the teeth noise that you see on mechanics on comedy sitcoms, the one that directly translates into, you're going to have to pay me lots of money to solve this kind of thing. So we sat down over a nice British cup of tea, and we talked over what my problem was, what my options were to solve it, and how he would solve the thing. So he gave me 3 different options that I needed to do, because otherwise my ceiling would collapse. And then he gave me another one that would probably save me some money on my water. I agreed to the first 3, he did the job. A couple of weeks later I called him again, got the last thing done, and I now have a working shower, everything went fantastic. That for me is how service provision should work when it comes to this kind of business. Now the second version is the exact same situation but done the digital way. So the digital way is that I have a problem, I call up the plumber with the same thing and I say, hey Mr. Plumber, I've got a problem, I want you to come round and, I kind of know what the problem is, so if you just maybe kick the shower and then do an exorcism of some sort, I reckon that'll probably do the trick. And then the plumber will come round and he'll look at my shower and he'll probably smirk, and then he'll tweet his friends and tell them what a dickhead client I am. And then he'll do his job as I've dictated it and he'll leave. And then a few weeks later my ceiling will collapse, I'll trap my leg in a 27 days kind of situation, and as I'm gnawing it off and bleeding to death, I'll tell my friends never to use this horrible horror of the plumber again. And that for me is what is symptomatic of this entire industry, which is we miss out the bit where we have been hired to do a thing, doing it right, rather than just doing the thing we're told to do. Just because the client is paying you does not mean that they know best. In fact, usually, just to really delve into this, means completely the opposite. They have hired you because they understand that they have a problem and they don't have the knowledge to fix that problem. So they have reached out to you. There's an implicit understanding that you have knowledge and skills that they need to solve the problem. And that, for me, should be the thing that hangs over the top of every conversation you ever have with that client. Every discussion you have should have that implicitly understood, that you are there to help them do something because you know best. And so, for me, when you're having a good conversation with a client, when you've established the right kind of relationship, when you hear those words, how should we do this? Now, the we bit, I'm not going to talk about this at all in this, but I feel we should be at the point now as an industry where we're constantly talking with our clients anyway. If we're doing work, it has to change. There are going to be problems, especially if we're doing things like responsive design, where things go tits up all the time. And you need the client there to be giving you sign-off, to be discussing things with you. So I'll skip the we bit. How should we do this, though? What that's saying is that I appreciate that you have knowledge that I need. Here are all of the things that I know. I want you to filter that through your little brilliant mind of knowledge, creativity, and all that kind of crap. And then give me some options so I can make the right decision. And that is what we should be doing. So take a step back. Why does it matter that we put all this effort in to make clients into these wonderful, wonderful people who make our jobs easy? Well, the reason is the work that you mentioned about Mike Montero. I completely forgot about that, but nonetheless, I'm going to delve a bit further into what he did, because he just went, good work. For me, the idea of good work is something that you are proud of, simple as that. It's the kind of work that when you come to an event like this, you go do that really awkward, hey, what do you do, kind of conversation. And one guy, there's always one dickhead that kind of go, oh yeah, I work over at XY, and I made Nike. So he's proud of his stuff, and he's a smug and he's a dickhead, that goes without saying, but he is proud of what he has done. And for me, good work is when a friend asks you, what are you working on right now, and you send them a URL, rather than just going, oh, I'm doing some stuff. That's something you've put your mark on that's been made good. And that's what we want to be doing, because it's challenging, it makes you grow, it helps you become one with nature, all that kind of stuff. For the client, it's also useful because that kind of work is more valuable than just churning stuff out. The reason you left your job originally was just it turned into that kind of churn factory, that anyone could do that kind of work. You could have hired a guy on Freelance. And by the way, I think that's the worst idea in the world.
Or Odesk.
Yes, or any of these stupid things where people price themselves at silly points and just do stuff that anyone who spends 5 minutes on Google could do. For me, good code is creative. I've come into the web design industry from a very weird background, and it astounded me the sheer number of skills you have to master and then you have to bring them together. You're not the artiste sat like smoking a beret on top of a mountaintop and painting with a baguette, that kind of stuff. You are somewhere between him and the engineer. Yeah. You're someone who's creating stuff that is useful and usable, but actually if you want to create good stuff rather than just stuff, you have to put the thought. Yes. It's about function, it's about going, okay, this works, now what can I do to make it better? What can I do to separate this from everything else? So that's where the value comes in for the client. It's the idea of, yes, I can make you a website, or I can make you a website that's going to achieve your goals better. Now, what's the goal for a website? The goal for a website is to do a thing. It's to maybe make a client buy something, or maybe it's to change the way someone perceives your brand, or something of that nature. An okay website is not memorable, it's useless. A good website where someone has put time and effort in is something that people remember, which means they might do the thing, or they might, for instance, stay on your site rather than going on to a competitor's site. And all of a sudden you're creating value. So it's good for you, you get good stuff that you're proud of, and it's good for the client. So what are we looking for? We're looking for the mystical thing, which is the good client. And a good client for me is someone who gives you the rope with which to maybe hang yourself, but do that kind of stuff. Now that doesn't happen magically. Okay, there's quite a bit to it, but the secret you have to be aware of is it comes down to money. That's the really boring truth, which is if you're going to do good work, that means you're putting in extra time. And if you're putting in extra time, the client is paying for that extra time. So your job, if you want to do the good work, is to persuade a client that it's worth you doing. That's where we get onto the filter. So you talked about this at length, the idea that just some of the worst people in the world. Now, I would hope that no one ever deals with them because they say no straight away. And it always amazes me that people have these kind of diatribes about how a client's screwing me over and stuff, because I feel it's your job to say no at the right point. I mean, the cold reading thing, yeah, absolutely. You know when someone's a dick. It doesn't matter if they're a client or not. You can just talk to them and go, I think you're horrible. And if you're a freelancer, this becomes really dangerous because as a freelancer, your entire business is you. So the moment you get knackered, the moment that you have to put up with horrible work that drags you down and makes you miserable, the moment that your work starts suffering because of what you're doing right now, your entire business slows down and fails. You can't afford as a freelancer to have these kind of toxic clients. So that's the easy part of the filter. That's just the bit where you go, I'm not going to deal with idiots. The bit that I think you have to put the effort in is the very terrifying idea of client training, which gets a really bad rap, in my view. Everyone talks about how it shouldn't be our job to train a client. I'm going to spend about 5-10% of my entire time as a web designer talking and helping the client understand what they're going to do. And the reason for that is, if you're going to do this good work, the end result of that, that's the easy bit. You hand over something and the client goes, yeah, that's brilliant. But they didn't see the 2 days you spent pissing about the JavaScript library was a dick or didn't have any documentation. You didn't see the original that you then worked on and then fixed and then worked on again to turn into something good. They get the end thing, but if they don't understand any of the bit going on in between, why should they pay you extra money to do stuff? You need to bring them along that journey with you so they can see the value you're adding. So they can look at the final thing and go, that was worthwhile. You know what, maybe that cost me an extra 120 quid. But yeah, it's going to convert a few more customers and my product costs 40 quid. So all of a sudden, oh my God, you've made me a shit ton of money. Well done you for that little thing. And that's where client training comes in. So obviously that's to do with openness and transparency. But this scary thing here, all these GIFs, you put up that animated GIF. And the reason I said I'd do this is because I was slightly angry and I thought, no, Sam, calm down, Dale. You risk it, take the lovely, strengthening, happy way of doing it. Clients are people. So those animated GIFs where you have the, oh my God, the logo was too small, you've got to make it bigger, where designers complain about this shit going on. My view of that one is, A, you've got the wrong attitude in that what people are really saying there is, so I made this lovely thing, it was beautiful, and then the client, he just kicked it for no reason. Why would he do that? Well, this is their product. This is the thing you're making for them. And legally, based on the contract, you're probably writing, look, it's actually more theirs than it is yours. But what you need to do is you need to take a step back and think, well, for the client, what is this actual thing? This thing is possibly the future of their business. This is the linchpin of their success. It might be the thing that gets them a promotion or ends up with them fired. They are more invested in this than you. And therefore, you can quite happily conclude that they want it to succeed really well. So I would redefine our jobs as establishing enough trust and enough respect between people that the client will allow you to take the lead and suggest the things that will make a thing the best it can be. And that's a terrifying thing, and it takes a lot of effort, possibly too much effort. But if you don't do it, you're going to end up doing the same shit over and over and over again. As a final point, as a freelancer, that idea of moving on and upwards, you look at the personal projects that have gone viral and all of a sudden people know about CRISPR and people know about Ethan Market because they've worked their arse off and they've consistently churned out stuff that is respectable. Now, to do that kind of stuff, that's what I would define as good work. But if you're not able to get the right clients who let you do the stuff that you're proud of, you're never going to be able to show people good work, and you're never going to advance at all. You're going to end up stuck in that horrible work doing the same shit over and over again until all of a sudden it turns out you can automate boring websites and you no longer have a job. So that's my happy ending.